your thoughts on the assertion that religious doctrine, because of the role of subservience and helper and dutiful wife, how do you feel that contributes, or do you agree that it contributes negatively to the impression that men have that they own women, or that they have a divine right to control women, and how does that feed into the whole problem, if at all?
So the problem is not religion per se. It's machismo, which is a way of thinking, patriarchy, which is a way of thinking that has kind of infiltrated this Caribbean space, as it has Latin America and many other places. The role of the male has really evolved in different ways in the last 40 years. And the men of yesteryear, whose wives were happy to wait on them and make sure this and that and the other were done, I ain't finding too many of them wives around these days, really and truly. So it's the whole of society that's gone through an evolution. But you also have to remember, but in those days, the wife more or less did not work.
Correct.
So she was really the homemaker.
Yes.
So each of them had their role and function, and each of them were contributing what they did. And bad or good, it was a way that society it's evolved from that.
Right.
But the bishops of the AC region, we put out a pastoral letter on domestic violence a couple of years ago. And we wanted to name a number of things in it. The first thing is that no one is called to stay in a relationship where there's violence and where there's domestic violence.
Right.
We also wanted to name that domestic violence is not for the good of the spouse, and therefore it is one thing that can annul a marriage.
Okay.
Because once there is something into this relationship that is inherent in the relationship that was so from before the marriage, then like violence, then it is not for the good of the spouse, and therefore that is a ground of annulment. And in fact, it's not only a should not stay, you should get out and get out quickly. And in fact, you can't even question whether there was ever a marriage in the first place. And the other thing too is that domestic violence, and this is not always seen or accepted, but domestic violence is a two-way street.
Agreed.
Because there are women who are violent to men.
Well, the cases against women are much more highly publicized, obviously.
But and the difference is one will be more physical, and the other one will be more verbal, psychological. But both are forms of abuse.
Right.
And wherever it goes, it doesn't really matter. But violence against a spouse is something that we could never stand by idly and look at. In fact, we have to become a lot more proactive in it. We have to do a lot more formation for couples in preparing for marriage in it. And I think we have to do a lot more for men in this society, because it's clear the levels of anger that men are holding, and that is not that's not healthy.